Scorpio, this is your week ahead astrology forecast by Astrology Motivation from Born Without Boundaries. In this video, every single week, we go over the major planetary aspects and transits and how they relate to your natal sun and what that means for your day-to-day for this week. Now, this is the week of June 6th through 12th, 2023. I have it in the description box. I have it in the thumbnail. I have all my notes ready for you. It is a wild and crazy week. It's a very intense week for you guys, especially Mars and Pluto are going through a lot. Yeah, we're going to get into it. So, Scorpio, you can enjoy this video whether or not you know exactly the sun's degree, where it's placed in the sign of Scorpio, because I'm going to translate it into estimated birth dates. So all you really need to know is your birth date. But if you want the most accurate participation for this video and in general, grab yourself your natal chart. Now I'm talking to Scorpios. I know who I'm talking to. You probably already have your natal chart. If you don't, it's very easy to get. No, I'm not trying to sell you something. In fact, it's free. You just go online and you search free natal chart, and there's a whole bunch of websites that do it. You need three things: your birth date, your birth time, and your birth location. Now, you already have your birth date. All these other two things are found on your birth certificate in the United States. Other places have told me no, that's not found then, but I'm sure you can find it somewhere. Once you find that information, plug it in. It takes a few seconds. Your natal chart, if you love astrology, and I'm assuming you do because you're here, if you love astrology, your natal chart is where you begin. And it's like going down a rabbit hole of joy. It's just one thing that's interesting after another, and it's just a spectacular journey, and you start there. So let's get into this week. We're going to start really broad with the big stuff that's going to impact everybody, but even a lot of that has to do with Pluto and Mars. So that's why I'm saying, you guys, this is an intense, kind of actually been an intense month and a half, because Mars and Pluto have been in the hot spot, very, very active. So we have, we're going to start with the big stuff, and then we're going to focus down into the stuff that really all Scorpios should be aware of. And then we're going to break it down into the decans. A decan is a group of a decan is a group of 10 degrees, and there's 3 decans in every zodiac sign, because every zodiac sign is a total of 30 degrees. The reason why I break it down, astrologers break it down into groups of 10 degrees, is because it's within that 10 degree toggle point that we really have to make our aspects. An aspect is a relationship between two planets that's created because of their angle to each other. Everything in astrology is based on geometry, and angles are a tenet of geometry. So the angles that they're forming in the sky to each other are going to impact the energy they create, or their relationship, or how they impact us on Earth, and that's what we call an aspect. So it's within that 10 degree point that we kind of give it that 10 degree leeway, but anything beyond that 10 degrees isn't the aspect anymore. You know, it may change into something closer to another aspect. So we really have to be aware of where our natal sun is located. And that's one of the many reasons why traditional horoscopes suck, because they really lump everybody into just one set, and that's just not how it is. Okay, so let's get into the big stuff. Well, the big stuff has a lot to do with you guys, like I said, and we're going to get into it. One of them has got nothing to do with you guys. Mercury is going into Gemini on the 11th. So on June 11th, Mercury transits into Gemini. This is nice because Mercury is at home in Gemini. Gemini is a sign that is steeped in education. So it's really like learning. Like, what have you learned? And Mercury has been through a lot. It has been through an intense period, and it's just come off a conjunction with Uranus, which is really usually big thought processes. And I told you last week, this is sort of the dissemination of big ideas or big information or rebellious talk. This is when you'd actually be able to, when Mercury comes home, deliver it or talk about it or understand what's been going on. This is a great time for communication and thought, education. It's just a very comfortable place for Mercury to be. So we're happy that Mercury has made it home. Now, another big thing happens simultaneously, not at the exact time, but it also happens on the 11th. Pluto, which directly impacts Scorpio always, Pluto officially retrogrades back into Capricorn. It is not going to stay there, but it's going to be there for a couple of months. It's at 29 degrees Capricorn. It's been hanging out at 0 degrees Aquarius, so it hasn't moved that much, and its relationships will be similar. But you can't ignore the fact that Mercury is going into Gemini the same time that Pluto goes back into Capricorn. I feel like there's some sort of big announcement coming, big breakthrough coming, big aha kind of moment coming, or big report coming. Really interesting time. Another big aspect this week is Pluto opposite Venus. This is actually kind of huge because Venus is also square to Jupiter while this is happening. It started last week. All this week it's going on. This is intense. This is intense because, Mercury conjuncted Uranus in Taurus, which is the sign that Venus rules, one of the two. And that tells me there's a lot of conference around finance that's going on. A lot of we got to change things, do things differently around finance. And now she's opposite Pluto. This could be just dynamic changes, a real friction that's going on, real kind of agitation. It's exciting, but it's also agitating because Pluto doesn't leave you alone. And these are real transformative metamorphosis kind of energies. So you can expect that there's going to be a lot of changes that are going on with your value systems, maybe who you value, who you're attracted to, your relationships if you have a weak relationship, I'm telling you, it's not going to survive this shit because Jupiter is also square, so it's going to explode everything. It's going to make everything more intense. It's going to make everything bigger than it has to be. That's just Jupiter. Plus, Venus is now in Leo, so she's very egotistical there. She's very much like, I have to feel special, and if I don't, I'm done. That kind of energy. If I don't feel special, I'm done. That kind of energy. So it's a lot, and we'll talk a little bit more about it because it will be impacting you guys. Pluto is no longer square to Jupiter. This is really nice. This is really nice because it kind of relieves everything in general, gives us a little bit of leeway, but there's still a lot of intensity this week. Pluto is also trine to Mercury by tomorrow, if you're watching this on the 6th. But by tomorrow, by the 7th, Mercury is trying to Pluto. And that tells me everything I need to know. They're definitely in cahoots together. They found something out. They discovered something. There's something going on. Any kind of interaction between Mercury and Pluto, there's harmony there. They're okay with digging deep and the uncomfortable conversations. They're okay to have it. I'm just letting you guys know. Let's go into the Scorpio specific. So we've talked a lot about it because, like I said, you're in the hot seat this week. We have Pluto and Mars. Pluto on the 7th. Note that the moon is going to be conjunct Pluto most of the day. It starts really, really late at night if you're in the States. Really, really late at night on the 6th and pretty much through most of the 7th that Pluto is conjunct the moon. Why does this matter? Well, Pluto is your ruling dignitary. You should always know what it's up to. And Mars is your traditional ruler, so you should always know what it's up to. And Mars moves around a lot faster, so it's going to change a lot more. But when the moon conjuncts Pluto, this is really emotional energy. This is really extreme energy. It's just really, really like very, very dramatic emotions. And being overly emotional could make you end things that you wouldn't usually do. So just know with all this other, the moon is conjuncting Pluto, going around like once every 28 days, right? But with all this other energy surrounding Pluto, I'm just going to say that day could be particularly emotional, especially for a group of you. We'll discuss it. Pluto is in opposition to Venus all week. By Sunday the 11th, I told you it retrogrades back into Capricorn, and it is trine Mercury. There's going to be a delivery of some shit. That's what I can say. Mars is in opposition to the moon on the 7th. So once again, that makes it even more extreme. This energy goes from conjuncting Pluto, then going into opposition with Mars just later on that day. Moody, reactionary, pugilistic, aggressive, angry energy. Please be aware of that. Mars from the 10th on is trying to Chiron. So we really do want to heal and get some healing done, especially with our physical selves. And 8, because Mars is in Leo, with our egotistical selves, with our ego, with who we think we are, with our personal image, trying to heal any kind of damages or wounds that have been created around that subject. Let's get into the Scorpio specific things. So now in Scorpio, there is still the North Node, and it is retrograde, which the nodes usually are retrograde, but it's at retrograde at 3 degrees. It's going to be in Scorpio until July, through July, mid-July, and that's when it finally moves into Libra. Okay, but it's still in Scorpio. Scorpio 1. If your natal sun is between 0 and 9 degrees Scorpio, you are Scorpio 1s. The relative birthdays would be November Scorpios. It's basically November 22nd through like the 1st, or maybe the 31st. Yeah, it's in and around there. 31st of October, probably up through Halloween, though depending on the year, Halloween, you could be in Deccan too, a little bit too. Keep your ear to the wall, because sometimes this stuff will impact you. Both of these things will impact you. So that's an estimate, but it's definitely 0 to 9 degrees Scorpio. Your natal suns are conjunct the South Node, opposite the North Node. So this is a time for you to really get settled into who you are before you try to discover who you're going to become. But you're in opposition to Jupiter too, which means taking your natal suns are in opposition to Jupiter. So it means taking everything to the extreme, taking things and yourself maybe way too seriously, having maybe trouble growing, right? Always finding it challenging to grow because of egotistical restrictions. I don't know if you're dealing with your ego or somebody else's, but this could really be a dissonant energy. This is definitely for the next couple of weeks, so FYI. And it's already started. It was there last week too. So yeah. You have a long-term square to Pluto if you're at the very cusps, and I mean the Libra Scorpio cusps. So if you're at the very cusps, your natal suns are square to Pluto, and they will still stay square to Pluto when it's at 29 degrees Capricorn. This is at the very cusps. So anybody between 0 and say 4, maybe 5 degrees Scorpio, this would be you guys, but definitely 0 to 4 degrees Scorpio. Your natal suns are square to Pluto. So since Pluto is so active, there's a sense of your life changing, and that change challenging you for the next year or so, because Pluto don't move very much, right? You have a long-term trine to Saturn, which means you kind of want things to stay the same. You found a consistency and a normality, and you want things to be the way you expect them to be, and rules and laws and regulations are things that you are working with, right? And they're working for you. But things are changing. And then we have, if you're cusps only, a long-term quincunx to Neptune, which means you could be fooling yourself and be falling for something. Self-deceit is really easy when there's a rough angle or rough aspect to Neptune. These are all long-term. What's happening this week? You got the opposition to Jupiter and the square to Venus. This is tough energy. Right? It deals with our value systems, our ability to grow, challenges with our relationships, challenges with how we see ourselves. Will our relationships grow? Where do we want it to go? Challenges with Venus are definitely could be financial as well. Jupiter is still in Taurus after all, and Venus rules Taurus. Venus is in Leo. Money issues, money conflicts, money problems, but also relationship conflicts. So this could be really challenging for you guys this week. I think strong relationships, Venus square your sun, will make it stronger. Weak relationships, not so much. This is not a great time to get your hair styled or to spend big amounts of money or anything like that. Keep it off the radar for another week. That's my suggestion to you. All right, Scorpio 2s. So this is those Scorpios whose birthdays are between, say, the 1st and the 9th or 10th, in and around there. It's basically the first 10 days of November. You guys, it's an estimate, but you guys are Scorpio 2s. If your natal suns are between 10 and 19 degrees Scorpio, that is Scorpio 2. This week, natal sun is square to Mars, and you have a long-term quincunx to Chiron. Guys, with that square to Mars all week, please don't fuck around and find out when it comes to your physical self. This is the time when injuries get intense. Anything square to Mars, especially with a quincunx to Chiron at the same time, either that or an old injury that's been causing you a lot of frustration is gonna creep up. So just please take particular interest and care when it comes to your physical self, with your body. Mars, Sun square Mars can get really angry very quickly, very argumentative, very aggressive, and very defensive. It can be a great energy for pushing yourself, but you don't want to push yourself too hard in that physical sense because of that long-term quincunx to Chiron. I know you want to heal. Have faith that the long term and the steady recovery is going to heal you. I know it's gonna be a little bit more challenging this week, just an FYI. So for those of you, let's go back. Those of you at the cusps, Scorpio 1, the moon is going to be conjunct Pluto on the 7th. Since you already have a square to Pluto, this is a particularly intense and emotional day for you, where shit could end real quick because of how high the emotions are. Please just be aware of that. That's for Scorpio 1. Scorpio 2, we're going to move on to Scorpio 3, because I think Scorpio 2, we did a good job covering you. Though, no, you have Scorpio 2, you have a square to Mars this week. And remember, there's a moon in opposition to Mars on the 7th. So please take note that when the moon goes in opposition to Mars, since you already have a square to Mars, this makes it even more intense, more moody, and you'll be more apt to emotionally react to things and be accusatory toward things when you normally wouldn't. That's going to be the 7th. So challenging day for different reasons for Scorpio 1 and 2 because of the interaction with the moon with those two planets. Just an FYI. Scorpio 3s. So Scorpio 3s, you're basically around the last 9-10 days of Scorpio season, between the 11th and the 21st of November. You guys are Scorpio 2. So any Scorpio sun between 20 and 29 degrees Scorpio is Scorpio 3. If you're born around November 10th or 11th, your natal suns are in direct opposition to Uranus. That can be really frustrating energy, really excitable energy, and really rebellious energy. Just nothing working, and you kind of like the norm kind of making your skin crawl, which can cause a lot of frustrations in life. This is long term, and I think last week it was probably the most intense because of Mercury's involvement. But ultimately, there could still be some big news coming out this week. Just an FYI, because this week, all week long for the cusps, your natal suns are in opposition to Mercury. So basically, beginning the 11th, from the 11th or 12th, all of your natal suns are pretty much going to start being impacted by this opposition to Mercury. But if you're at the cusps, between Scorpio and Sagittarius, you're going to start to feel this all week long, this opposition to Mercury. This could bring major confusion, feel like its own mini retrograde. It's not a great time for you guys to sign contracts. I wouldn't want to give any big important proposal or speech or take any major tests. This could be disruptive news coming in or disruptive information coming in. Now, just because it disrupts you doesn't mean it's going to ultimately be bad, but it will be disruptive. Just an FYI. If you're at the cusp. Only if you're at the cusp between, wait a second. Yeah, there's a trine to Venus. Yeah. If you're at the Sagittarius cusp, there's a trine to Venus for most of the week. Venus is pretty compromised this week, but a trine to Venus for you guys means elegance, natural grace, just a sort of sense about yourself that you don't even have to work on, a sense of attractiveness about who you are. Also sort of a harmony and a general calming down when it comes to relationship matters. So you guys are on the good end of it this week. There is long-term squares to Saturn, which means opposition to the rules, laws, regulations, trouble with authority figures, or just constant challenges when it comes to work. And then if you're at the cusp, a sextile to Pluto. And that's actually a beautiful energy because that means you are ready for change, willing for change, and perhaps you are the conduit of change itself, which could explain why there's so much batting of the head when it comes to Saturnian energy, rules, laws, and regulations. But Pluto will win. I just want to let you know that. Let me know how all this energy is impacting you guys. And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. We need to grow over here. I want to reach 10,000 by the end of the summer. That's my goal. So come on in and help out. Give us a thumbs up. Share this video if you really love it. And know that I also always have your Scorpio week ahead tarot card reading over on Born Without Boundaries. And I hope to see you guys there. I love you, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye, Scorpio.